Welcome to my channel.
I met a girl on one of the social networks. At first, our communication didn't make a strong impression on me, but as time passed, I became increasingly interested in the girl. We exchanged messages every evening. The girl's name was Anna, and as it turned out, we had a lot in common. Over time, we realized that our communication couldn't be limited to just texting, and we started calling each other. We talked for hours. We discussed many things, and our opinions aligned on almost everything. I eagerly anticipated Anna's calls every time. Her voice was so beautiful to me, it felt like I could fall in love with her just by hearing it. She was equally beautiful in her photos. I began to think about the possibility of meeting Anna in person, but she lived in a different city, and arranging a meeting wasn't simple. So, we continued to communicate for almost a year. When I finally suggested meeting up, Anna happily agreed, and we set a date. After buying a plane ticket, I eagerly awaited my flight to what I believed was my destiny. And here I was, landing in the city where Anna lived. We got in touch, and she explained how to get to her place. She lived with her parents, so I was about to meet her dad and mom. I stood at the door of a girl's apartment whom I had never seen in person. I was so nervous that my heart felt like it might leap out of my chest. I rang the doorbell, and almost immediately, Anna's mother opened the door. I handed her a bouquet of flowers I had bought on the way, but she looked at me with bewilderment and asked, "To whom are you, young man?" "To your daughter," I happily replied. "Didn't Anya mention that she was expecting a guest today?" "What nonsense are you talking about?" Anna's mother responded angrily. "Anya passed away a year ago, she couldn't have possibly invited you." At that moment, everything inside me shattered. I couldn't comprehend what was happening. It all felt like a cruel joke I didn't want to believe. I asked for an explanation. Anna's mother explained that her daughter had tragically died in a car accident a year ago and that it was shocking for her as well that her daughter had been communicating with me online and over the phone. After checking Anna's smartphone, which was turned off and kept in a cupboard, we found all our messages and call history, confirming that I had indeed been communicating with Anna for almost a year. There was no rational explanation for this. Shortly after, Anna's father, who was also in shock upon hearing about my communication with his daughter, came home from work. Anna didn't respond in any way, she didn't reply on social media or answer calls. It all felt like a surreal dream. I spent the night at a hotel and flew home the next morning. That's how my communication with, as it turned out, a deceased person came to an end. I woke up in the middle of the night to a noise in the kitchen. I live alone, so there shouldn't be anyone else in my apartment. It was unsettling and frightening to think that there might be intruders. I got out of bed and went to check who or what was making the noise. As I approached the kitchen door, I could clearly hear the clatter of dishes and what sounded like people walking around, as if there was a party going on. However, when I opened the door, I saw nothing, and the noise stopped immediately. It was all quite strange, but I decided not to dwell on it and went back to sleep. Over the next few days, the same situation repeated itself. I would wake up to noises in the kitchen, but as soon as I opened the door, everything would stop. This began to trouble me greatly, and I couldn't stop thinking about it even during the day. So, I came up with a plan. I found a large mirror and placed it in front of the kitchen door. I decided to leave the door open at night and see what I could observe in the mirror. Night came, and I couldn't sleep while anticipating the execution of my plan. Just past midnight, the kitchen became noisy again. Carefully, I got out of bed, approached the mirror at an angle where I could see what was happening in the kitchen. It was dark, and all I could discern were dark, indistinct figures moving like shadows. To get a better view, I shone a flashlight into the mirror, which resulted in a very loud screeching noise that turned into a sort of hissing, and the mirror shattered into small pieces. After that night, all the strange noises and phenomena in my apartment ceased. I still don't understand what those dark figures were in my kitchen, but on the other hand, I'm very glad that nothing bothers me anymore. A search team of 5 people was moving alongside the forest, following the trail of a missing girl. They could clearly see the tracks of enormous, unknown animal paws. The crushed grass and the blood on it confirmed the suspicion that the girl had been dragged along the ground, but the full picture of what had happened remained elusive. 50 meters ahead, the tracks led into the forest. Without hesitation, the team followed them. It was already getting dark, and they needed to hurry. Along the way, they came across shreds of torn clothing, and here and there, bloody stains left by the unfortunate girl. The girl was most likely already dead, but finding the culprit in her demise was a matter of honor. With rifles on their shoulders, the men approached a clearing shrouded in thick fog. The powerful flashlights in their hands, with which they illuminated their path, barely penetrated the fog. Entering the fog, all 5 of them could only rely on their keen hearing, which helped them maintain some form of communication with each other. Unable to see beyond their own noses, they wandered through the clearing, literally feeling their way. At some point, in the fog, a figure in black clothing appeared. It was clearly visible, despite the mist that concealed everything. Behind him, a huge, fur-covered man-wolf was carrying a naked girl in his arms-paws, her body bleeding. Raising his hands to the sky, the man, who appeared to be a sorcerer, chanted words in an unknown language, and the beast placed the girl at his feet. The search team was paralyzed, bound by an invisible force. When the sorcerer finished his incantation, the men in the team's skin started to crack, and the flowing blood was absorbed into the ground. Soon, the entire team was dead. But the girl, lying in the pool of blood emanating from the men, opened her eyes, black, with no whites. Her wounds healed, absorbing the foreign blood. She stood up and approached the sorcerer, who, after inspecting her, said with satisfaction, addressing the beast, "The ritual is complete. Now this young lady is as strong as 5 men, and her will is under my control." After that, all 3 of them departed to pursue their dark deeds.